Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the B&I Show for this Saturday, December the 12th. I am your host, Blake, known as @ChatMyKirk on Twitter and BTownBomb on Reddit. And we have our co-host here, Isaac. He is known as ShutUpIsaac_ on Twitter and ShutUpIsaac on Reddit. How are you today, Isaac?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Can't complain about many things.
Except St. Louis sports.
Oh, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. It's going to be great. But as always, we begin our NHL quick hit section, which certainly with missing last week, going to be a lot of news to go over. But we start out with the NHL Stars of the Week, 6 stars in total now, as we have the 3 stars from last week and the 3 stars from the month of November. First, Isaac, give us the 3 stars of the week from last week.
All right, so 3 stars of the week. We'll start from third star to first star. So the third star of the week was Mike Camilleri, the New Jersey Devils. He had 4 goals and 3 assists in 4 games for the Devils. That was certainly a good week. The second star of the week was Shea Weber of the Nashville Predators. He scored his first career hat trick against somebody. I'm forgetting who, but he scored his first career hat trick. I want to say against the Red Wings. He had 3 goals and 3 assists in 3 games, so that was a nice little 6-point week for him. And our first star of the week was John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. He went 3-1-0 with a .76 goals against average and a .968 save percentage. That was 2 shutouts in the 4 games that he played.
Shea Weber, not only his first career hat trick, that was the first hat trick by a defenseman in Nashville Predators history. And equally amazing was the night after that, Roman Josi also almost had a hat trick. He had 2 goals in a game against Boston the next day. Mike Camilleri is an interesting fellow to me. He's, if I remember correctly, he's getting to the age where players normally slow down, but he seems to be hanging in there and is producing some quality stats for New Jersey.
Yeah, Camiller's always been an interesting one to me. Ever since he was on the Habs and he got traded halfway through the game for Rene Bourque, and he got when he signed in New Jersey, I wasn't expecting.
And John Gibson, Anaheim has seen a bit of a resurgence, and Gibson is one of the main reasons why they needed their offense to start clicking again. But Gibson has been doing pretty remarkable in net for the Ducks as well. And that is your 3 stars of the week. Once again, they were Mike Camilleri of Jersey, Shea Weber of Nashville, and John Gibson of Anaheim. And now our first 3 stars of the month to review this for the month of November. And Isaac has those for us. The 3 stars of the month for November, they would be, I don't remember in the particular order. Oh, here it is right here. Going from 3rd to 1st star, it is Matt Duchene of the Colorado Avalanche, Braden Holtby, goaltender for the Washington Capitals, and Patrick Kane for the Chicago Blackhawks. And we talked about this previously as well, because Matt Duchene previously had also been awarded with a Star of the Week. And I mentioned this as well, and I have to say once again, with this being a bigger reward over a more extended period of time, good for Matt Duchene. Colorado has been dreadful, quite frankly, this season. And Matt Duchene so far has been their bright spot of that team. And with that, as may usually be the case, comes trade rumors. Duchene perhaps hoping to join a playoff-bound team once we get closer to the trade deadline, but that is something to look for there.
Yeah, it was interesting because Matt Duchene was doing fine for the player that he is up until the Colorado trade rumors, and then that ultimately set him off, and he started producing at a much higher rate. So it was an interesting that it took trade rumors for for Duchene to start producing how he should be, and because of this, I don't think Colorado's going to get rid of him anytime soon.
And the second star of the month, Braden Holtby, the Capitals netminder. Very solid, we know that. And second star of the month in a month that was filled with spectacular forward performances is pretty remarkable, I'd say. And the Capitals currently second in the, I believe, second in the Metropolitan Division still, perhaps. They're they're in the thick of things at the top of the Metropolitan Division there, and Holtby making sure that they remain competitive.
Holtby went 9-2-0 this month. He had a 1.99 goals against average and a 927 save percentage. So he had a very good month. It wasn't like he had a hot week or something like that. And this is just Holtby continually showing that he's one of the top goaltenders in the league, which is good for Washington, a team that's been looking for a starting goaltender for what seems like forever.
Washington currently leading the Metropolitan, actually, with 40 points, as the struggling New York Rangers have dropped to second with 39. And the number one star for the month of November, well, he has certainly shown, continued to show talent, showcase elite skills. This is Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks, putting up a lot of points, and yes, currently in the midst of a 25?
Yes, 25.
I believe, yes. And he's, I'm trying to find the league leaders here. He is, oh, here we go. Near the top, if not at the top. Yes, he is at the top of goals and assists in the NHL as well. He has 45 points on the season so far. Jamie Benn leads the goal scoring race, but Kane, I believe, is in the top 3 in goals still.
Yeah, what's pretty impressive about this month, I guess could start before this month. There were 13 games this month in November. He had 15 assists and 23 points through that. And that's amazing. 23 points in 13 games is pretty crazy, especially in the league now that's starved for goals the way it is.
Yes, and the Blackhawks so far this season, they've been fairly up and down, but Patrick Kane has shown to be that one constant on that team. If even the Blackhawks as a whole are struggling, as has been the case during this point streak, many times Kane has been the bright spot of that team. That is the 3 stars of the week, the 3 stars of the month for November. We now move into the news portion. We have contract terminations, we have milestones, we have an injury report, plenty of things going on. We will begin. How about we begin with contract termination? Um, Alexander Semin, placed on waivers by the Montreal Canadiens. He went unclaimed, therefore contract was terminated, and he has found a new home in the KHL.
Yep, Alex Semin was put on waivers twice, actually. Once for the demotion to the St. John's Ice Caps of the AHL, and he wasn't claimed. And the next day, he was put on unconditional waivers for the termination of his contract by the Canadiens. So it took him a couple hours, I would assume, if not a day or so, to find a home in the KHL, which he was looking for, or wasn't looking for, but his agent was looking for some options in the KHL during the offseason. And so they finally settled on Metallurg Magnitogorsk of the KHL. And if I believe correctly, they have a good roster over there in the KHL. One of the better teams, I believe.
If I remember correctly, they are either the defending champions of the KHL or have won a championship in the last 5 years.
I'm looking at the team they have now, and some notable names I can see here are Woltek Wolski. He plays there. And Washington 2015 first-round pick Ilya Samsonov plays over there. So that's they have a pretty solid team. I don't know the KHL, so I can't go, hey, these guys are pretty fantastic. But it looks like they're the type of team that would look like they could add 7 or something.
Simmons' career in the NHL has been fascinating. We remember just a few seasons ago, 3, 4, 5 seasons ago, whenever it was, he was playing in Washington, and he was one of the brightest stars on those teams, one of the brightest prospects of that team. He gets traded to Carolina, and for whatever reason, he is just not the same.
Did he get traded to Carolina? I could have sworn that he had just signed there as a free agent.
He probably did sign there, yes.
Yes, and the thing is, when his first season in Carolina, he scored exactly a point per game. He had 44 points in 44 games. And next season, he had 42 points in 65 games. And then they finally signed him to that huge contract, and then he put up 19 points in 57 games. And then this season in Montreal, he had 4 points in 15 games. So he's been on the decline for a while now, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that his NHL career is over.
After less than 10 seasons. I don't remember the exact number of seasons.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in Washington.
Oh, okay. More than 10 then.
3 in Carolina, and then I guess if you count the season in Montreal, that makes 11.
Close. So yes, Alexander Semin, well known, certainly a notable name in the NHL. Perhaps his career in the NHL has ended. Not in the hockey world, though. He continues to play now as a member of Metallurg Magnitogorsk in the AHL. Next, I believe we do have some injuries to report.
I can ignore the big news of the day, though. We have the biggest news of the day and possibly the month.
Yes, and it ties into this as well. It's a good segue. We do have another contract termination that occurred today, this time with a head coach.
Yes, Mike Johnston, the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins for last season and this season up until today, was let go along with assistant coach Gary Agnew. I would assume that he runs a power play or something like that because their power play was awful. And they have been replaced by Mike Sullivan, who was the head coach of the AHL's Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. who are second in the AHL, I believe, right behind the first place Toronto Marlies.
Yes, I've been hearing good things from Wilkes-Barre's current, and I find that move interesting to occur. I mean, you find any move of this sort interesting to occur during the season, but uh, Pittsburgh, they haven't exactly been a powerful team so far. They are currently, I looked earlier, I believe they are currently fifth in the Metropolitan Division.
Yes, they are.
When, during the off season, there was the uh, anticipation that Pittsburgh would perhaps be able to compete right there with the Capitals and the Rangers, make it a three-way race for the Metropolitan Division. Of course, there's still a lot of time for things to change there, but as it stands right now, Pittsburgh has 33 points. Philadelphia is 3 behind them, and the Penguins are 6 points behind the Rangers for second.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because when you have a team like Pittsburgh and the firepower that they have there with Crosby and Kessel and Malkin, excuse me, Letang and all these guys, and sure you lose a guy like Paul Martin, and you lose some other spare pieces here and there, but they've also replaced them nicely with Eric Fair and Matt Cullen. And you still can't find the win games, and it's not because you're playing poorly per se, because there are stretch games where Pittsburgh is getting shut out, and you can't be getting shut out with a team like this. It's not right. And if I recall correctly, Jim Rutherford, the Pittsburgh GM, said publicly to reporters something along the lines of he wants Daniel Sprong to be playing because there was a reason that they didn't send them back down to junior. But Mike Johnston wouldn't play him, and when he did, he basically got under 10 minutes of ice time each game. And so I feel like there was some frustration between the general manager and the coach, ultimately led to somebody who will play the team the way that Rutherford has put the team together.
Yes. I also have to say, if there is anybody that is perhaps looking at this possibility, I wouldn't exactly say the negatives of the Kessel trade are factoring in here just yet. The negatives, as we know, as we believe them to be, was Pittsburgh, a top-heavy team, trading away a bunch of depth to Toronto to make them even more top-heavy. And down the road, that could have some pretty bad repercussions in terms of building depth at the farm system. But as it stands right now, I'm not sure that can really factor into the current woes.
Yeah, and the Kessel tree makes me nervous as a Leaf fan. Each day I grow more okay with it in a way, but at the same time, for us to get the full return that we wanted on that Kessel deal, Pittsburgh needs to make the playoffs. And as long as this season is going on, I have to cheer for Pittsburgh because I need them to make the playoffs. And I don't like Pittsburgh too much, and it'd be fun to see them struggle. But what can I say? From a hockey standpoint, this seems like a good move. It seems like Penguins fans are happy with the move, happy with King Johnson out there. At the same time, what struggling team doesn't want to let go of their coach? Well, other than the Leafs, but I mean, other than that, which team at the bottom, or not even at the bottom, but what team doesn't want to get rid of their coach when they're struggling?
All right. That moves us. That now moves us into the injury report for this week.
Yep. So this injury, we have a couple injuries. We have Logan Couture, who's out indefinitely. after having surgery to repair arterial bleeding in his right leg. He's back on the IR after 2 games since returning from a fractured fibula. So that's unfortunate for Logan Couture and the Sharks there.
Definitely unfortunate for the Sharks as well. Couture is still young. He still has some upside. So he's looked to as the future of the San Jose franchise once they finally move past Thornton and Marlowe, whenever that would be.
Mm-hmm. We also have Bobrovsky, who's out 3 weeks with a lower body injury. That's as much information as the Columbus Blue Jackets gave out. That is 3 weeks with a lower body injury. And so you thought that the Jackets were struggling before Bobrovsky couldn't save anything. Well, here we go because he's injured.
Yes.
So I hope Torts has an excuse for everything here.
Curtis McElhaney returns now, and you've seen it. We've all seen how Columbus has been operating for the last few seasons. If Bobrovsky is out with injury, well, then there's very little hope. I mean, normally when a starting goalie goes down with an injury for a extended amount of time, it's usually not the best thing for whatever team. I don't care if you're the top team in the league or wherever. That's usually a bad thing. But for Columbus, extra bad.
Mm-hmm. Because they're not a team that should be at the bottom of the league, because they're dead last in the league with 24 points. And going into the season, they weren't supposed to be the worst team in the league. Were they a playoff team? That's arguable on many accounts, but not last in the league. And they've already fired their coach, and so there's only so much that Jarmo Kekalainen can do as a GM. And there hasn't been a single trade made. Well, there has been, but it was basically a minor league deal. There hasn't been a single major trade yet in the league. So, from a fan standpoint, you want something to happen. At the same time, from a hockey standpoint, for a guy like that, who, in one way or another, kind of needs to make a trade, because if he's content on bottoming out this season and hoping to get Austin Matthews or at least somebody in the top 3, then he should be trading away his assets so that when Bobrovsky comes back, he doesn't propel them to victory over again, and they have a repeat of the end of last season when they went on a huge winning streak and basically just missed out on the playoffs. At the same time, if he wants to make the playoffs this season or wants to be competitive, he should be making moves that will help them go over the top when Bobrovsky comes back.
And he is out for 3 weeks, you said?
Yes, 3 weeks, lower body injury, and that leads us on to the next one, which is Dan Hamhuis, who's out 2 months with a facial fracture. He took a shot off the face, I believe, and now he's out for 2 months.
Oh, yes. That did not sound good. Any others on the injury wire?
I do not believe so. I have not any other major injuries listed here.
All right. There's your brief injury report there. We now move into the milestone portion of the news. We have a player and coaching milestone to report. First, with the coaching milestone, New York Rangers head coach Alain Vigneault, his 1,000th career NHL game as a head coach was just this past week, I believe.
It was last night.
Oh, last night against the Edmonton Oilers, yes. Alain Vigneault, of course, formerly the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, went to the Rangers. in, I believe, the off season after the lockout shortened season, I think it was.
Yes, I believe so.
And of course, John Tortorella, they traded places, and he's now the coach at Columbus. Vancouver has Willie Desjardins. But Alain Vigneault, your thoughts on him, Isaac, on him as a coach and how he operates?
I don't watch enough Rangers to really know his systems, and I certainly didn't watch enough Vancouver to know his systems. All I know is that he seems like a good coach, and why Vancouver fired him doesn't make sense to me, and why they replaced him with Tortorella is an even bigger head scratcher to me. He seems like he's one of the better coaches in the league. That's not really talked about, because when you're listing off some of the best coaches in the league, okay, you go, Mike Babcock and your Bruce Boudreau, unless you want to ignore this year, and you got your Barry Trotz, and all the coaches now are screwed up. Like I'm thinking, I'm looking at teams here, and I'm trying to figure out their head coach. You got Lindy Ruff, John Quinville, and guys like that. But you rarely hear about Alain Vigneault and all the success he's had. So 1,000 NHL games as a head coach, no less, is nothing to scoff at, because there's a bunch of guys that barely make it to 100.
Yes.
So it's good for him.
Yes. Alain Vigneault will coach his 1,001th career game, 1,001th career game tonight, and we'll get more into that in a bit. The player milestone now, Jaromir Jagr of the Florida Panthers. The night before, when Florida played Washington, scored a goal in their 4-1 win over the Capitals, and that moved him into a tie for fourth place with, I think it was Marcel Dion for fourth all-time in goals scored.
I believe, yes, it was something around there. And Yager, I know everyone talks about, Yager being great, and, at his age, there's a lot of guys to slow down. And people say a lot that it becomes almost, annoying in some sense, when it's talked about a ton, you just kind of take it for granted. But Jaromir Jagr is really good, and he's 43, 44, one of those. And to still be producing at the rate he is absolutely crazy. And you're basically watching history every time he steps out on the ice.
Yes. So, for most players at 43, you're not slowing down. You're just done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I don't know what it is with Jagr, but somehow he remains in tip-top shape. And with a tie for fourth all-time currently, of course, one more goal would move him into sole possession of fourth. The Panthers did play today. However, Boston got the 3-1 win, and Jagr did not score the Panthers goal. So his next opportunity to move into sole possession of fourth place will be Tuesday, when they take on the New York Islanders in Brooklyn.
That's all we have for milestones there.
All right. I thought there was something else. Wasn't there something else we wanted to discuss?
We have another piece of news. It's not a milestone, but we have the breaking news now that Stamkos is 100% coming to Toronto. Sign that up, put me on the record, and thank me later when it happens.
Yes. This was began as more of a rumor mill story, more of a gossip story, but more intrigue is coming to this. I find it interesting because, to me, and I'm sure, of course, Isaac would be able to give us more background on this. I mean, all of a sudden, just one off season, I'm hearing all of the Leafs fans clamoring for Stamkos to leave his role as captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning, come join the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that seems to have come out just out of the blue for me, with no reasoning for it. They just picked a player. They had all the players lined up on a corkboard, threw a dart, and it landed on Stamkos. So now they want Stamkos. That's what it seemed like to me. But I assume Isaac would have more of how everything began to materialize.
It's interesting because Steven Stamkos, if I recall correctly, when was he drafted? Because I may have the story mixed up, and I hope I don't. But if I recall correctly, on his draft day, because he was picked first overall by the Lightning in 2008, I believe that Brian Burke had asked for the pick, like the first overall pick, and that would have involved the Leafs giving up the 5th overall pick there, which turned out to be Luke Schenn.
And Brian Burke at the time was Toronto's GM, I believe.
Yes, Brian Burke was Toronto's general manager at the time.
Okay.
And so I believe it was Luke Schenn and something else there for the first overall pick, which would have been Steven Stamkos. And it's not the first time that Toronto's been involved in these rumors. There was also the John Tavares rumor that was very similar to this one. And so there's a little bit of, rumored backstory there with Toronto. And it's been a thing for a while now. I think for like the past 3 off seasons, people have had, July 1st, 2016 circled on their calendar, hoping that Stamkos goes to free agency and signs with Toronto. And to me, it's interesting because, one, I would obviously love Stamkos as a Leaf, but where he fits into the team is interesting because there's been reports that most coaches in the league see him as a winger instead of a center. And it wouldn't make much sense to sign him as a winger and play him as a winger an offseason after you've gotten rid of one of the best right wingers in the game with Phil Kessel. And so if he is going to free agency, which I still don't believe he is, I still think that he's getting signed. He's getting re-signed with the Lightning. But if he goes to free agency, I just don't really see a place on the Leafs for him other than first-line center. And it wouldn't make sense to play him anywhere else. But, it's a long way away, and I hear people saying, like, oh, maybe the Leafs should just trade for him. And that's an amazingly stupid idea, because a team like Toronto shouldn't be trading for a guy like Stamkos that's on the expiring deal, unless they know they can get him re-signed. But even still, why not just wait till July 1st and sign him? I feel like a team like Nashville, if he's going to free agency, a team like Nashville would be great to pick him up. Get that first-line center you want, and get that extra playoff boost. But, personally, I still think that he's getting re-signed with the Lightning, even though the Leafs and 28, I guess if you include the Lightning, then 29 other teams too would be interested in acquiring Steven Stamkos. So it's pretty much a non-story. I just thought it was funny to bring it up because he, in quotes here, accidentally liked the TSN story on Twitter about him going to the Leafs, and this is the 3rd time I believe he's done that. All 3 are considered accidents, and so people had to take the story and run with it.
I know that when sometimes I'm scrolling through my Twitter timeline with my thumb over the right-hand side of the screen, I will accidentally catch myself liking a tweet.
That makes too much sense.
Yes. Well, and for that to happen 3 times, I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, you know those athletes who it seems like they'll just search for their names and see what tweets come up, and then they will like whichever tweets they like.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a really big feeling of Stamkos to the Blues. Really big feeling. They're just gonna, they're gonna get rid of Backus and they're gonna replace him with Stamkos. It's the only logical answer here.
I don't think that would be good for Tampa.
Just trade them. Just swap 1-for-1. Backus for Stamkos.
I'd like that, but Tampa would not be the winners in that one, actually.
I mean, if you really need to, just give him Steve Ott too. If
Yes.
you really need to sweeten that, just give him Steve Ott.
Who's in injured reserve. I will do that. There's the... Okay, I believe that concludes the... just wraps up the entire NHL quick hit section. Milestones, injuries, contract terminations, gossip. All right. We now move into games. Our update on the Pick'em games from last night. Continuing the Pick'em on tonight's games, we begin with an update from the results from 2 weeks ago when we last broadcasted.
I thought we were doing week in review. Are we switching up the format?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we completely forgot about the week in review as well. Okay. We will go to the weeks in review now, the Blues and Maple Leafs. Weeks in review. Who went first the last time?
I believe I did, but I will go again this week because I have everything here.
Okay, let me set you up here. This week's in review, this is for the week of, today is the 12th, so it would be the week of the 6th through, or November the 30th through December the 6th. Toronto played 3 games in that week, 2 losses but 1 win. And for more on those games and the week in general, here's Isaac.
Well, if we're starting on November the 30th, that would be 5 games in total, starting with the Oilers and going, if we're making up for last week too. Mainly, I will skip over all the other games, and I will just do the Oilers game from last Saturday, and then start with the Blues game from the Oilers game from Monday, the 30th of November, and then skip all the other games and go straight to the Blues from last Saturday.
Yes, that would be 4 games in that week now. The week started on Monday, November the 30th, so 4 games, and the Leafs went 2-2 in that week.
Mm-hmm. So, basically, I'm only going to talk about the 2 games here. I'm only going to talk about the Oilers game and the Blues game, or the Leafs game, that is, because the other 2 games, I guess I could say something brief on them, because the game versus Winnipeg on the 2nd of December was possibly the Leafs' worst game of the season. We lost 6-1, and the effort from everybody on that team was awful. I did not watch the third period, which is the first time this season I have turned a game off during the while it was still going on. And I'm proud of myself. I made all the way to December without doing that. And then the game the next night in Minnesota was one of the most boring games, rivaled only by the game versus Carolina. It was a 1-0 loss there, and the goal came in the second period. And so if we rewind there and we go to the game versus the Edmonton Oilers on November the 30th, that was a 3-0 win, and Leo Komarov scored the first goal of the season, first goal of the game. That was his 9th of the season, is what I meant to say. And then that was followed up by Nazem Kadri in the third period. Scored his 3rd of the game, so he was starting to come alive. And then Leo Komarov scored the empty netter to score his 10th of the season. The Leafs win 3-0. Garrett Sparks put the shutout in his first career NHL game. And if you haven't heard already, that is the first time in Leafs history where a player has made his NHL debut with the Leafs and gotten a shutout.
How many times in NHL history?
That is a good question. I know Troy Grosnick got it last year for the Sharks, and I believe John Gibson got it 2 seasons
Uh,
ago with the Ducks. Other than that, I'm pretty sure it happened a bunch of times before, but those are the only two
and
guys I can name off the top of my
yes,
head.
and so that has happened more times than I thought. All right.
Yes, so it was interesting. In almost the 100-year history of the Leafs, that was the first time someone's made their NHL debut and gotten a shutout, which was kind of surprising me because you'd think somewhere somebody would have done it, but apparently not. So Sparks has his name in Leafs record books for the rest of his life. So he doesn't really have to do much else now. Um, and then I talked about the other two games in that week, which was the Winnipeg and Minnesota game, and that took us into Saturday night, where the Leafs were looking to bounce back versus the St. Louis Blues. The game started out as Leafs games do start out. A goal within the first 2 minutes, this one from Vladimir Tarasenko,
Of
put the
course.
Blues up 1-0. Nazem Kadri, jumping on that success from that Oilers game, got his fourth of the season from Leo Komarov and Roman Polak. There's a former Blue there. Uh, Tied the game up at 1-1. Brad Boyes got his second of the season. He really needs to be playing more, to be honest. I'm
Also,
not.
a former Blue.
That's also a former Blue.
Yeah.
I'm not really ragging on Babcock too much because he's done a great job with the roster he's been given. But there's one thing I want is Brad Boyes getting more ice time because he has looked fantastic, but for some reason he's always playing under 10 minutes a game or just over, and it doesn't make much sense. Brad Boyes got the second goal for the Leafs on in this game, also assisted by Roman Polak and Sean Mathias. P.A. Parentovechkin got his seventh goal of the season to make it 3-1. And in the third period, Nazem Kadri with his fifth goal of the season. He's getting hot with an assist from Morgan Riley and Leo Komarov. The Leafs win that one 4-1. Garrett Sparks gets his second career NHL win, and he only allowed one goal, which is great for him. I'm really liking him. And then we had one game this whole week, and that will take us into next Tuesday. So we had a game this Tuesday, and that will bring us into Tuesday. So we had a full week off. Last Tuesday, we played the New Jersey Devils in Toronto. This was Lou Lamoriello's first time facing his team that he was with for 25-plus years. Made the team into what it is today. And the Leafs ended up winning this one in a shootout. Lee Stempniak, former Leaf, scored the first goal of the game there. P.A. Parento got tied the game up off a weird one from the blue line, which jumped over Corey Schneider's shoulder. You have to YouTube that. It was a very interesting goal, to say the least, and it was nice having the Leafs do that for a change. Roman Polak got the assist on that, so he has a nice 2-game point streak going in. You know, that's good for the guy I want off the team. James Van Riemsdyk scored his 8th of the season to make it 2-1 Leafs. But Kyle Palmieri said no and tied the game up at 2. Nothing happened in the third period. And then the Leafs ended up scoring in the shootout from Tyler Bozek and Nazem Kadri. And they won the game 3-2, and that was the Leafs week in review.
Oh, yes. Just to clear up the confusion, we normally do the weeks in review of the broadcast week. So when I said the week in review for the week of November the 30th to December the 6th, that was last week when we did not broadcast. So this week in review for the week of December the 7th to the 13th, that was the Leafs' only game of this week, just to clear up that confusion. All right, and your weekly superlatives, best and worst team and individual performances.
Best team performance was probably, it's a toss-up between shutting out the Oilers or beating the Blues, and I will take beating the Blues. The way they rebounded after the first 10 minutes of that game. They looked awful. St. Louis was all over them for the first 10 minutes. looked like it was gonna be another repeat of the Winnipeg game, but after around the 10-minute mark, they really just buckled up and were foot on the gas for the rest of the night. It was one of their better games of the season. I really, really enjoyed watching that one. Worst game of the season, or well, I guess you could say worst game of the season, but worst game of the week was the 6-1 loss to Winnipeg. Nobody looked good there. Not a single player looked good in that game. I just wanted it to be over more than anything. Best individual performance, Garrett Sparks. I believe he's up to a 964 save percentage, which is great for him. Getting the shutout versus the Oilers was great. He did get lit up against the Jets, but then he bounced back with that 4-1 win over St. Louis. So, and he had the win versus the Devils. So Sparks is 3-1-0 with a 2.21 goals against average and a 921 save percentage. A 964 came from the St. Louis game, which is why I was so confused. So it's good for an NHL call-up who's likely to push for an NHL job next year in a perfect world. It's good that he's getting some experience and some success now. Now, it's up to him to see if he's starting the game versus the Lightning on Tuesday, and that all depends on whether or not Reimer's back for then. Worst individual performance? It's a toss-up. I'm going to give it to Matt Humwick this week, because Matt Humwick has been pretty not good for the whole season, but for some reason Babcock thinks he's solid, and he's been getting a bunch of minutes. He's basically the Leafs' top pairing with Morgan Rielly. He really should not be, but he is, and he always takes these weird trips into the offensive zone and then just skates around and pinches at the worst time and leaves Rielly back alone, and then ends up getting caught and getting a goal against and making me all upset. So Matt Humwick is probably the worst individual performance of the week.
Okay, and that concludes the Leafs week in review. I hope you're ready, Isaac, because I'm probably going to end up ranting.
I am more than ready for this.
Yes, this is probably the moment you've been looking forward to. This is now the Blues week in review. I suppose since Isaac did the same, we can do a 2 weeks in review. So for the 2-week period between November the 30th to Sunday, December the 13th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games will be played in these 2 weeks. 5 have already been played. The Blues have only won 1 of those games. And, it seems like a fairly light schedule. Game at home against Florida.
Really?
On the road against the Islanders. At home against Toronto.
Oh, those guys.
At home against Arizona. At home against Philadelphia.
Oh, Philly.
Yes, and only 1 win from that, and it was against a team who was quite dreadful on their road trip. Not the best month so far, and it started at the beginning of the month on December the 1st on the Tuesday in a 3-1 loss to the Panthers.
All right, so I have a question. What's worse for St. Louis now? This stretch of games or losing Jason Hayward?
I think losing Jason Hayward, because if you ask me, quite frankly, St. Louis is still a baseball town, and so that's the one everybody's focusing on. The Blues, it's secondary. It's still in the season. There's still people who saying, "Oh, it's just December; they'll get out of it." And the Rams, nobody cares about the Rams.
It's just the Rams.
Yes.
All right, so back to your weekly review. I just wanted to say that.
Yes. So, starting Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago, with the 3-1 loss at home to the Florida Panthers. Probably the worst first period the Blues have played all season, but also probably the worst first period the Panthers have played all season. No goals in the first, and neither team got a shot until maybe the halfway point of the period. It was very sluggish uh, activity going on both sides, and then the scoring erupted in the second period. All the goals actually were scored in the second period, and maybe a little around 20 seconds apart, Florida jumps up to 2-0 because of two dreadful turnovers by Steve Ott, two of the worst turnovers I have seen. Backus scored maybe 20 seconds or so, or exactly 21 seconds after the second Florida goal, perhaps made it competitive, but Derek McKenzie, with his second of the game, made it 3-1. And in the third period, as it usually goes in these situations, the Blues will have some moments of offensive pressure, but not a lot, and they'll start to not connect on passes very well, and it'll just end up, nothing will end up happening because the other team seems to not realize they can easily put up 3 or 4 more when we do that. That's when it began. It got a little bit worse. Friday in Brooklyn against the Islanders was actually not that bad of a game. Not that bad of a game for Brian Elliott as well, and the Blues scored first, actually. Kevin Shattenkirk on the power play, 1933 in the first, and it was a defensive struggle. It was a goaltender duel between Elliott and Tomas Greiss. But Mikhail Grabovski, 639 in the third with the tie. And then Brian Elliott is not very good at the shootout. And so only the minimum of 4 shooters were needed to get the Islanders the 2-1 win in the shootout. But we did salvage a point, which in this ever competitive division is a premium. But we come into Toronto, and we're all thinking this is the game, that we can fix this little slump going on here because it's the Leafs.
Yes, it is.
But it did look, as you said, we were all over the Leafs in the first period, and it did look pretty good in the first period, and that was what gave us hope for the game because our first periods were usually not very good. We have been scored on first in the first period way more than we scored the first goal all season so far. But Kadri ties it, and then everything collapses from there. Hitchcock with some insane line combinations there, and this game we all started to suspect that it's more than a simple slump. The post game, excuse me, the post game comments from this game were just bizarre, with Hitchcock basically just throwing his hands up and saying, "I don't know what to do," and that's never a good thing to hear from your coach.
Yeah, I think it's strange when Allen in the second goal, and he was pulled and replaced by Elliott for 2 minutes, and Allen skated by the bench and kind of like threw his hands up, saying like, "Hey, Hitch, what are you doing?" And then 2 minutes later, got put right back in the game by Hitchcock.
And of course, a few days later, it was just reported that Allen knew that all of that was going to happen, and he was just doing whatever.
What do you mean he knew it was going to happen?
Like when he was talking with Hitchcock, it was basically he I I'm assuming most people got the assumption that Allen kind of maybe convinced Hitchcock to let him back in, but as was reported a few days later, he knew once he was back there behind the bench, he was informed that yes, he would be uh, put back in the game.
All right,
And
yeah.
yes, it's basically just this weird gimmick that Hitchcock does. He did that in the game in Chicago, if you remember. After trailing 5-2 in the first, he did that, and it looked like it ended up working, but it did not here. And it's a tired gimmick. It doesn't work really. I wouldn't say the goalie carousel was what won us that game against Chicago, and obviously it didn't win us the game here. And I also found it interesting that Hitchcock complained about the players' lack of, I forget the word, intensity, maybe, when it's his job to instill intensity in the players. But yes, that game was bizarre in terms of how we played and how the post game presser went. 4-1 win against Arizona. The following Tuesday, um, we did look good in that game, and Arizona. Arizona's only goal was the one that actually gave him a lead. It was by Steve Downey, and it was in the first. But we rebounded. They rebounded nicely after that. 2 goals in the second, a shorthanded goal by Alexander Steen. 2 goals in the third, and we were still outshot in that game, 23-22. But we thought we were good. We thought we fixed everything essentially. But let me see here. Oh, the next game, a 4-2 loss to the Philadelphia Flyers. They looked okay in the first. Uh, they looked good in the first part of the second. Robbie Fabry got his fifth a minute 35 into the second, and we looked good there, but Philadelphia scores 3 straight. Everybody's talking about Claude Giroux's goal, and everybody's saying how this is the goal that, well, you just can't be mad at because he was impressive. But basically, that's a load of baloney, really. I mean, the overlooked thing of that goal was how he just undressed Magnus Payarvi, who was being lauded for his incredible speed as of late. In the defense, of course, he muscled around the defense as well and did all that. Backus on the power play gave us some hope, but Ryan White with the empty netter, and that was the 4-2 win. I have to say, and actually, I will also mention that the third period of the game against Toronto, I forgot to mention this, was the first time all season I didn't watch a period. And unlike Isaac, I am disappointed that I only made it to December.
How so?
Because it's the Blues. You don't expect this sort of dreadful play from them. I mean, this actually normally happens in December. They hit a bit of a slump in December, but this one seems rather different. If I remember correctly, I don't believe we've had this much of a easy, more or less, schedule in December. I mean, Florida, Toronto, Arizona, well, we did win there, but Arizona, Philadelphia, they are beatable teams, and we only have one win from that, and we only have 4 goals. Or 4 goals. No, 5 goals from the games that we lost. We're not competing well against the teams that are winnable games. And so there's something about this December slump that I'm beginning to think is more of a slump that drastic changes will be needed to um, fix this slump before we find ourselves in a real deep hole. We played tonight in Dallas, and I have to say I really don't have a big desire to watch this game. I mean, I really don't think people realize just how terrible the Stars have to be to not light up this defense right now when they have Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan.
Yeah, well, what they can always surprise you.
I mean, they could, but I don't know. To me, there are other things I'd rather be doing.
Are the Canes playing?
They are playing tonight, yes.
There you go. You can watch another bad team.
Yes. And, they puck drop is an hour after the Blues game in that one. And then we end this week on a Sunday, our first Sunday game of the season at home, a back-to-back against Colorado. I wouldn't be surprised, though, knowing this team to beat the Stars but get blown out by Colorado. I will say that.
Makes sense.
Okay. And that concludes the Blues week in review. But now the superlatives, best and worst team and individual performances. Best team performance, obviously. I got to hand it to our only win of the month so far, that 4-1 win against the Arizona Coyotes, in which they rebounded nicely from being outplayed in the first. They get the shorthanded goal, and they got scoring from other than Tarasenko. Worst team performance was the game against Toronto. I mean, not only losing, but being outplayed by Toronto, which is not very many of us expected that, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say you should, but at the same time, I want to come off as cocky. But the Leafs have outplayed a good chunk of teams this season, and I'm not just saying that like from the eye test. You look at the stats, and the Leafs have outplayed about half of the teams that they faced this season.
And and I will tell you, especially with your record now against the Blues, sweeping the Stars, getting that win against Nashville, the top teams in the Central Division. Do you have a guess why that is, Isaac? Because I have a good guess.
Because they're not Winnipeg. I hate playing Winnipeg. I'm so glad we don't have to play them anymore. But no, I really don't have a reason. It just seemed like we got outplayed in one of the Dallas games, but then we made the next one look super easy. Or we made the one before. One of the games we got outplayed, the other one we didn't. Other than that, like the Nashville game was pretty close. The St. Louis game we outplayed you guys. Winnipeg game we got outplayed both games. We haven't played Chicago yet. Colorado we really outplayed. So I don't have a reason as to why the Central is our division right now.
Let me throw this at you. Mike Babcock, he is your head coach, of course, formerly the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, was there for his last season in the Western Conference, in which he played against all of those teams except for Winnipeg. I believe Detroit's last season in the West was the lockout shortened season when Winnipeg was, his last season was the last season of the old divisional format when Winnipeg was still in the Southeast Division. So, let me throw this at you. Since that time, only Nashville has a new head coach. he still faced. Dallas had a new head coach as well, but
Winnipeg as well.
yes. But again, they were in the Southeast. He didn't play them a whole lot. I mean, the the coaches have changed in Nashville and Dallas, but in terms of the overall play style, really only Nashville has seen the more dramatic change. So basically, what I'm saying is my theory as to why the Leafs are performing so well against the top teams in the Central is because Babcock knows them still. He still keeps that familiarity of how to compete against them.
I want to say I completely agree, but at the same time, to use that same strategy there, we should be dominating against teams in the Atlantic too, because that's where he played last, or that's where he coached last season with Detroit. And so the familiarity, because Boston still has Julian, Montreal still has Tyrion, obviously Leafs and Detroit switch, Florida still has Gallant, Tampa still has Cooper, and Buffalo now has Bilesma. But overall, the coaching is pretty much the same. So why hasn't that worked against the Atlantic Division?
Well, I could be wrong, but I believe Babcock was only in Detroit for just that first season of the new division format.
Two last season and the season before that when
Okay. Let's see here. He's been the coach of the Red Wings for, I want to say, was it 5 seasons? 5 or 6, somewhere around there. And, with the exception of those two, he's spent all that time in the Central. I mean, I can see your counterpoint, but honestly, I can't think of any other reason really.
no, just I bring it up. It's not a huge deal. I'm pretty content with the way the season has been going. The team's been watchable. They're still losing games, but what would you expect with a team that's built the way the Leafs are right now? They're not built to win this season. There's a reason William Nylander is still in the minors. So I can't really complain about much this season, knowing that the team is going to be bad. But knowing that they're watchable almost every night is great.
So anyway, the worst team performance of the past 2 weeks, that was the loss to the Maple Leafs. Best individual performance. Once again, I have to hand it to Jake Allen. He's not been getting the wins as of late, but you really can't pin that on him. The defense has been rather inept at times this month, but he's still not a bad goaltender, I don't think. And other than Tarasenko, the main bright spot of this team, but I got to give Allen the best individual performance of the past 2 weeks, mainly because I feel bad for him. Knowing how it goes in St. Louis, the goaltender is always to blame there. Worst individual performance, I have to say it's going to be somebody on the defense. Not the best unit so far when they're supposed to be. And to pin it on one defenseman, I could say Carl Gunnarsson. That would be the easy one. And it probably would be Carl Gunnarsson. Though, I'm trying to think. I think it was that game against Arizona. He actually had a pretty solid game. But, in terms of all the defensemen that have played this month and in terms of how all the defensemen individually has played, Gunnarsson has probably not been the best one of the unit this month. So I suppose give the worst individual performance to Carl Gunnarsson for that one. All right. And that concludes the weeks in review. And now we can move on into the topic of games. A recap of the pick'em from 2 weeks ago, the results of that, games from last night, games for tonight for us to pick'em. But we begin with Isaac, who has the results from the pick'em games from 2 weeks ago.
So we started off with the Columbus St. Louis game. We both chose St. Louis for that one, and St. Louis did end up winning that one. Washington Toronto had both of us choosing the Capitals to win, and they did. Montreal New Jersey, once again, both of us chose the same team in Montreal, but it ended up that New Jersey won that one. The Islanders and Tampa Bay. I chose the Lightning because, gotta get Stamkos a cup before he comes home. And you chose the Islanders. The Islanders ended up winning that game. Edmonton and Pittsburgh, I used my upset pick of the week on the Oilers, and that paid off because you chose Pittsburgh.
It was a 3-2 win in the shootout.
Yes, it was. Speaking of the Oilers, they're 1 point out of a playoff spot. Mark it now. Oilers for the Cup this year. Buffalo, Nashville. I chose Nashville. You chose Buffalo, and Buffalo ended up winning that game. We both chose the same team again for the Dallas-Minnesota game in Dallas, and Dallas did end up winning that one. Winnipeg, Colorado. We both chose the Jets to win, but it turns out that the Avalanche had different plans, and they won that one. Ottawa versus the Coyotes. We both picked Arizona, and Arizona won that. It's important when we picked the same teams here. The Flames and the Sharks. We both chose the Sharks, and we both got that one. And finally, the Hawks versus the Kings. We both chose the Hawks, and neither of us got that one. You win this week 2-1.
Yes. I believe the two of us were correct on our upset picks. You had Edmonton. Oh, I had Buffalo. Yes, that was my upset pick from that one. And that was a 4-1 win. Buffalo not exactly all over Nashville. Nashville had the edge on shots 29-24, but a 4-1 win for that one. So cashed in on the upset picks, and I took the win here in that one. In the overall lead still remains in favor of me, I believe.
Yep. You have the edge in wins 2-1.
All right, and there's our recap. Now we move on to checking out last night's games. A decent amount of games going on in the NHL. Most of them late, though. For most of them, we're on the West Coast. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games from last night. And we begin with the Carolina Hurricanes, who were all over the Anaheim Ducks in Anaheim. Carolina got the 5-1 win in that one. Jeff Skinner in the first 16:50 got the scoring going for the Canes. Another goal by Skinner, 11:35 in the second. And that was followed up by a power play goal by Elias Lindholm, his 4th of the season. Assist by Eric Stahl and Justin Falk. Jakob Silfverberg ended the shutout bid for Eddie Lack, his 3rd of the season. Assist by Sami Vatanen and Ricard Raquel. And that would be Anaheim's only tally, as Jordan Stahl responded 16:43 with his 6th of the season. And Jeff Skinner with one of the more impressive empty net goals you will see, I believe. If you have not seen Jeff Skinner's empty net goal, which gave him the hat trick and his 11th of the season, you must. Very nice finesse moves by Skinner there. And Eddie Lack had the secondary assist on that one. And Eddie Lack had the first star of the game, stopping 31 of the Ducks' 32 shots compared to the Canes' 24. Jeff Skinner with the hat trick, the second star of the game, and for whatever reason, Corey Perry No goals, no assists, no points, -2, ±, 5 shots, third star of the game. And let's see here. Next, the New Jersey Devils. This was their Star Wars night. A very popular promotion and very good timing as well with the release of the new Star Wars movie this month. When is that again, Isaac? Surely you should know that.
The Star Wars movie, when does that come out?
Yes.
Here in Canada, it comes out on the 18th of December. So.
Oh. 6 more days then. How about that? Yes, well, the Force was with the Devils.
Oh, boy.
We're ending the show. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And the Devils got the 3-2 win in the overtime period. They outshot the Detroit Red Wings 38-29. It was Detroit, however, after a scoreless first period, jumping out to a 2-0 lead in the second. 8:51. Both on power plays. 8:51 power play goal by Gustav Nyquist, his 11th of the season. And then at 16:08, another power play goal by Tomasz Tatar, also his 11th of the season. Brad Richards and Mike Green with the assists on those. 2 goals by the Devils, however, in the third. Damon Severson, his first of the season, assist by former Red Wing Jordan Tutu and Steven Gianta, at 2:40 in the third. And the game-tying goal was on the power play, 14:40 in the third. Sergei Kalinin, his third of the season, Tutu with a secondary assist on the goal. Into the overtime period, 4 minutes, 20 seconds into the overtime period, Kyle Palmieri, who now has 13 on the season for the Devils. The assist by Lee Stempniak, and that got the Devils the 3-2 win. Kyle Palmieri, the first star of the game, of course. Sergei Kalinin with the game-tying goal, the second star of the game. And Jimmy Howard got the third star of the game. He was still impressive, it seemed, stopping 35. I'm terrible at math. 35 of the Devils' 38 shots. Double check, Isaac, was that right?
What was the thing?
If the Devils had 38 shots on goal and 3 goals, and Jimmy Howard saved 35 then?
What do you want me to figure out?
If that's correct.
If they had 3 goals on 38 shots, I mean, yeah, he saved 35.
Yes. Excellent. Did you notice the hesitation when I was trying to add that in my head?
I noticed the hesitation when you were trying to ask me the question.
Oh, well. Next, another 3-2 game after regulation, this time in the shootout. This time the Los Angeles Kings getting the 3-2 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. 82, that's some better math, quick math. 82 shots between the two teams, and Pittsburgh had the edge with 42. Tanner Pearson in the first, 7:34 got the scoring going for the Kings, his 4th of the season. Eric Fair, his 3rd of the season for Pittsburgh, tied the game at 18:45 in the second. Matt Cullen and Brian Dumoulin with assists on that one. The two teams traded goals in the third, just 34 seconds into the period. Jake Muzzin, his 3rd of the season. Andrzej Kopitar with a secondary assist on that one. And the game-tying goal comes at 18:50 in the third, with Evgeny Malkin getting his 13th of the season, assist by Chris Kunitz and David Perron. No events in the overtime period. 8 shooters total in the shootout period, but goals by Kopitar and Marian Gaborik got the shootout win for the Kings. let's stop down and talk about the Los Angeles Kings. We remember their not so good start to the season, but it seems now they are leaps and bounds better than they were to start the season. They're leading the Pacific by by a heavy margin in that one. They're red hot now.
It must be easy for them because they play in the Pacific Division. There's my hot take of the week because the
Wow.
Pacific Division is not very good. It's probably the worst division in the NHL right now because the Oilers, despite being I think 33rd place overall, are 1 point out of a playoff spot in that division. That's pretty crazy. So when a team that should be a cup contender like the Kings are, especially this season with them adding Lucic and whatnot, they should be leaps and bounds ahead of the Canucks and the Sharks and the Oilers and the Flames, you know? So I'm not too surprised. More surprised when they started off kind of rocky, but now with the way they're playing and where they're in the standings, I can't say I'm surprised at all.
And this is still the case. There is a wider gap between first and second in the Pacific than there is sixth and seventh in the Pacific. The Kings have 39 points to the Canucks 30, and the Ducks have 27 to the Flames 26.
The Ducks, man. Wow, that's the team we should be talking about. Jeez.
Yes. And why not talk about the Ducks? They outplayed the Carolina Hurricanes at home, but they only put up 1 goal on Eddie Lack, and they were peppered with 5 Hurricanes goals for that one. They seem to be on a bit of an upswing after their disastrous start to the season, but perhaps not as big of an upswing as what would have been anticipated.
Yeah, after they decided that they were going to keep Boudreaux, not fire him and whatnot, you'd figure that one of two things was going to happen, that they were eventually going to give in and fire Boudreaux, and the team was actually going to start winning games and get back to the top of the division like they were. That's what I was talking about before with Columbus. Now, I'm not advocating that the Ducks should tank in any way, because if they tank, that's amazingly crazy, especially with that Kessler contract they signed in the offseason. But maybe it's one of those situations where you could benefit from making a trade, And I just saw something on my Twitter timeline. I think since 1997, the NHL has only gone 4 months without a trade in the NHL. So it only has 4 months since 1994 where a trade hasn't been made, and 2 of those months are this year. Or this season, that is. And so, maybe a trade needs to happen for one of these teams like the Ducks, something that gives them that extra spark. If they're intent on not firing Boudreaux, which I agree with, they should be firing Boudreaux. I feel like that is the correct move. But so you got to do something about the team. You can't leave that team there. Market it to your fans as a playoff team, and look like you're okay with everything else going on there.
My personal desire is that the Ducks continue to play poorly, where what's his name? Paul McLean, who is currently an assistant for the Ducks, he gets fired, and then the Blues continue to play poorly. Hitchcock gets fired, and then new St. Louis Blues head coach Paul McLean. How about that?
See, what I was going with was with the whole Penguins thing today. I told Alec on Twitter, I said, we all know what's going to happen at this point. The Penguins are going to wait until the offseason, get a new coach. The Blues are going to have a disappointing playoffs, as is tradition. And
Yes.
The new Penguins head coach is going to be Ken Hitchcock next season.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I hope they're ready for I don't know, Eric Fair to be playing with Sidney Crosby.
I mean, to be honest, that's not much different than what's been happening.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Brace yourselves for that if that happens, Pittsburgh. But yeah, I'm kind of liking Paul McLean, and the only way he gets fired is if the Ducks continue to play poorly, which now is my hope. All right. Continuing along here. Speaking of the Blues, the Central Division gets a lot tighter for them now, with the Chicago Blackhawks last night getting a 2-0 win over the Winnipeg Jets. Power play, both Chicago goals on the power play, both by exactly who you would expect. 4:34 in the first, Winnipeg native Jonathan Toews, his ninth of the season, assist by Marian Hossa and Andrew Shaw. And then 10:36 in the second, Patrick Kane on the power play, his 19th of the season, assist by Teuvo Teravainen and David Rundblad. And no goals in the third. Chicago gets the 2-0 win, outshoot the Jets 31-25. Corey Crawford getting the second star of the game with that shutout. And so the Central Division now, Dallas is clear by 12 points of you now. Or I'm sorry, 10 points of you now. Could be 8 with a win in regulation. But now St. Louis is tied for points in second with Chicago. Nashville is back by a point. Minnesota back by 2 points. And shoot, if Winnipeg gets things turned around here, which they totally can, they're 6 points back. So things are getting a lot tighter. The things are heating up. The pressure to do better is increasing. I would hope that would reflect on the Blues players. The Arizona Coyotes in another Central Division matchup. They get in another Central Division opponent in action last night. The Arizona Coyotes get the 2-1 win in overtime over the Wild. Here we go. The Wild outshooting Arizona 28-21. And they also got the first goal of the game. Their only goal of the game occurred in the second after a scoreless first. 6:33 in the second, Jared Spurgeon, his fourth of the season, with assist by Zach Parise and Jason Pominville. That is the Wild only tally. 17:50 in that same period, Mikhail Bodker, his 10th of the season, an assist by Tobias Reeder. And that ties the game, and with a scoreless third at an overtime, where Bodker again, now his 11th of the season on the power play, 34 seconds into the overtime period, assist by Antoine Vermette and Michael Stone. And that gets Arizona the 2-1 win. Anders Lindback was in net for the Coyotes, and he got the first star of the game, stopping 27 of Minnesota's 28 shots. Mikhail Bodker, 2 goals in that game. The game-tying and game-winning goals, the second star of the game. And Tobias Reeder, the third star of the game in that one. And lastly, this one will have plenty of discussion, I'm sure, especially from Isaac. A lot of goals scored in this one, so a lot of recapping to do here. But on the night that Glenn Sather, who last night I learned played for the Edmonton Oilers, was honored by the Oilers in a ceremony with the team he played for, taking on the team he general managed. And Edmonton sure didn't disappoint. They got the 7-5 win. Defense optional in this game, it seems. We begin with 4 goals scored in the first, 3 of which by Edmonton. Lauri Korpikoski on the power play, his 4th of the season. That was answered at 12:16 in the first. Matt Zuccarello, his 12th of the season. And Korpikoski again, that would be his 5th of the season at 15:47. But a minute and 11 seconds after that, Teddy Purcell made it 3-1 Edmonton with his 6th of the season. Taylor Hall with a primary assist on that one. And then 2 goals in the second, both of which by the Rangers just 53 seconds into this game. Into this period, Chris Kreider, his 5th of the season. Henrik Lundqvist had the secondary assist on that one. And then 8:44 in the second, Derek Brassard, his 10th of the season. Rick Nash, Mark Stahl with assists. And then the third period is when things got really crazy. 6 goals in total scored in the third, 4 by Edmonton. Taylor Hall, just 18 seconds into the period, his 13th of the season. That was answered 2 minutes 40 seconds into the third by Darnell Nurse, who now has his 2nd goal in the NHL. Taylor Hall and Leon Draisaitl with assists. Back-to-back goals by the Rangers, however, 6:28. Derek Brassard, his 11th, assist by Rick Nash and Keith Yandel. A power play goal by Rick Nash, his 9th of the season. Dan Boyle with the primary assist on that one. However, back-to-back goals by Edmonton would seal the deal for that one. Taylor Hall with his 14th of the season. Draisaitl with the primary assist on that one. And Laurie Korpikoski got his 6th of the season and the hat trick on the empty netter. That came at 19:22 in the third. Taylor Hall with 2 goals, the first star of the game, 2 goals, 2 assists. Laurie Korpikoski with the hat trick, the 2nd star of the game, and I don't see the 3rd star. Now then, I'm definitely going to try my best to catch my breath while Isaac goes over his thoughts on this game.
My thoughts on this game is that I watched the first period, decided that I wanted to sleep, and did that. So from what I saw, and the highlights I saw after, or this morning when I woke up, well, the Oilers played a fine game. It really did. And, for a team like the Rangers that are obviously crashing down from the high PDO that they were running with for the longest time, it was good that the Oilers got to play them. It was good that a team like Edmonton, or in this case, that's Edmonton themselves, got to play them, because it's, there are harder games out there to play, and for a team like the Rangers right now that need to, they're obviously on the slump and they don't want to be. So for them to want and, try to get wins and to lose against the Oilers must not feel good, but it's great for the Oilers to come and beat a team like the Rangers, So it gives the Oilers some confidence because they win, and it also kind of crushes the Rangers' spirits because they ended up losing to a team like the Oilers who, in all respects, still aren't very good. So.
Okay. That was certainly a lot of goals to recap from that game. And I felt my throat slipping away with every goal. Okay, let me see here. That will conclude the games from last night. We now move into previews for tonight's games. Once again, there are 5 teams that are followed between the 2 of us, and 3 of those are in action tonight. And we'll begin with Isaac while I tweet something out. Let me see here. Because from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, it is the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators. And here is Isaac with the preview of that game.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do not like the Senators, and you'd think that Leafs Senators games, with the Ontario rivalry, would have everything, amped up to 11. But Sens Habs games are crazy intense because the teams hate each other, and that goes back to the playoffs a couple of seasons ago. And there was that Eric Greiba hit on Lars Eller, and then a lot of other things. And so every time that these two teams get together, it turns into a pretty entertaining game in most aspects of it. Hoping for a Habs win because once again, Sens are awful. But overall, the Habs have kind of been struggling now without Price. It started off perfectly fine when they were rolling with Mike Condon, and they had Tokarski kind of chill him back up, but looks like Tokarski's won the temporary job right now as Condon's been struggling. So I think it's perfectly fine for the Habs to go back to Tokarski, and I think it'll be perfectly great for Tokarski to go out there, get some confidence, and ultimately get a win versus the Senators tonight.
Real quickly, my apologies. I did overlook one game from last night that we can recap real quick. I was watching a little bit of this game, so I did forget about this one. Last night, the Dallas Stars and the Philadelphia Flyers from the American Airlines Center in Dallas, and the Stars got the 3-1 win. 3 of the 4 goals scored in the second. Shane Gostisbehere on the power play. 9:23 in the second got the Flyers on the board first, his 5th of the season, assist by Claude Giroux and Jakub Voracek. However, that is all the scoring for Philadelphia as Dallas scores 3 unanswered, starting at 14:06 in the second with Matthias Janmark, his 6th of the season, assist by Betsa and Johnny Oduya. 17:28 in the second, Antoine Roussel, his 5th of the season. And then at 19:07 in the third, Jamie Benn with his league-leading 20th of the season, 20th goal of the season on the empty net, assist by Tyler Seguin. And the Stars got the 3-1 win in that one and outshot the Flyers 44-20. Okay, so there's that. And now for my previews, we'll begin. Oh, and the Canadiens and Senators, they start at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And we'll begin 7 o'clock Central puck drop from the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis, Missouri. It is the St. Louis Blues and the Dallas Stars. As I alluded to in the weeks in review, I'm really not expecting much from this game, and so far I have not mustered enough desire to watch this game. The Blues have been, you could say, struggling. I'd say much worse as of late. And the defense really is probably the worst unit at the moment. And there would have to be some serious issues with the Stars to not be able to beat our struggling defense with the likes of Ben and Sagan. And yes. Okay. And lastly, from the Gila River Arena in Glendale, Arizona, the Arizona Coyotes and the Carolina Hurricanes. This is a 8 p.m. Central Time puck drop. And I have to say, Carolina, they have been rather competitive as of late. They, I think, currently, currently 3 wins in their last 4 games. Very close to perhaps a 4-game win streak, very close to a 4-game point streak. that being the game against Dallas. And I have to say, I've been impressed with what Carolina has been able to do so far, and I'm liking their chances for this game. And with that, we now move into our pick'ems, and we'll start with the 6 o'clock games, 3 of them, from the, what's the name of their arena? The First Niagara Center in Buffalo, New York. It is the Buffalo Sabres and the Los Angeles Kings, and this is where we begin our pick'em.
Well, I need to see who else is playing tonight, but overall, I think I'm going to pick the Kings anyways for this one. They won last night in Pittsburgh, and so, they're red hot. I thought they're going to stay red hot.
Let's view the goalie matchup for this one. It is, ooh, yes, interesting. It is former Sabre Jonas Enroth getting the start for the Kings and Linus Ullmark for the Sabres. With that in mind, I have to go with Kings for that one. Familiarity with the team for the goalie is an advantage. And in this case, it is an advantage for Jonas Enroth, not to mention the Kings. They have been red hot as of late. And once again, from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, 6 o'clock. Central start, we have the Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators.
Well, obviously, I'm going with Montreal here. I don't see a huge reason as to not go with them. I guess you can make the case for a guy like, is Craig Anderson starting? I would assume that he is.
Let us view the goalie matchup. It is Craig Anderson for the Senators and Dustin Tokarski for Montreal.
Yeah, so, maybe you could bank on a guy like Anderson to win, but you never know with Habs Senators games what teams decide they're going to show up. The Sens could come up flying tonight and win, or they could not show up at all. So it's interesting, but I'm going to choose the Habs.
My goodness, yes. Looking at where the two teams are at the moment, this one really can go either way. And so, as I have cited a couple times in the past, the first rule of sports predictions is that when in doubt, go with the home team. Montreal happens to be the home team, the Canadiens. 2 more 6 o'clock Central Time. Oh dear. I'm messing things up. Here's another thing I forgot to mention. We did have one final already from today, and we will discuss this final as well, because I'm curious to know each other's thoughts on one particular team here. The Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers playing earlier today. Florida outshooting Boston 27-25, but the Bruins getting the 3-1 win. Florida's only tally coming at 13:56 in the third. Riley Smith, his 8th of the season, a former Bruin. Assist by Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Peary. At 11:35 in the first, Ryan Spooner, his 6th of the season, assist by Torrey Krug. And Spooner again on the power play. That would be his 7th. 8 minutes in the second. And the Florida goal was answered 18:37 in the third with Brad Marchand, who has 14 goals on the season now. His empty net goal, assist by Patrice Bergeron. Spooner with 2 goals, the first star of the game. Tuukka Rask stopping 26 of the Panthers' 27 shots, second star of the game. Patrice Bergeron, a pair of assists, the third star of the game. Now, Boston, they're an intriguing bunch to me. Of course, with their with their fascinating offseason that they had, most people didn't really expect much from the Bruins. However, as we look at the current standings, we see Boston currently third, tied for third with Ottawa in the Atlantic Division with 35 points. Your thoughts on the Boston Bruins so far in their intriguing
And
season?
their season. Where is Boston in the standings? Because if I recall correctly, they are third, or in the, no, they are. If I recall correctly, let me
Yes,
check. They're
they're
in the
third
wild
in the
card
Atlantic,
spots in. Uh,
tied for third in the Atlantic with Ottawa with 35 points.
all right, so that's good. They're having a much better season than I anticipated. You know, when you pick up guys like Zach Ronaldo and you're playing games the way they are. It's great that they still have a guy like Rass. They didn't make the decision to trade him. I'm not sure why they would have thought of it if they did at all. So it's an interesting one for them. I've been saying that word a lot today, interesting. But it really is when it comes to the Bruins because their season could have gone one of two ways. It could have been right at the bottom of the standings, although I don't think a team with Rask and Bergeron will let you do that. Or they could have been, in the playoff run like they are this year. And so it'll be more intriguing to see where they are come trade deadline time as opposed to where they are now. I'm more interested in seeing the team then than seeing the team now.
All right. And that is our one final for today. Now we return to the regularly scheduled pick'ems. And from the Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Washington Capitals.
Go ahead. You pick first this time.
I was, well, I will go with Washington for this one. Let me observe the goalie matchup. I'm assuming it's going to be Braden Holtby and Ben Bishop, perhaps. Who is Nikita Nesterov?
Who is that?
Nikita Nesterov. Oh, he's a defenseman. Never mind.
Yes,
Okay, yes.
took the
Ben
word
Bishop
out.
and Ben Bishop and Braden Holtby, the uh, goalie matchup. That lineup looked rather confusing. Okay, yes, I will go with Washington for that one.
I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
Ooh. All right, and the last of the 6 o'clock starts from the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. It is the Columbus Blue Jackets and the New York Islanders.
Well, I mean, I gotta choose the Islanders here, right? I don't want to use. If I'm gonna use my upset pick of the week, it'd be on this game, but I don't think I am. I am going with the Islanders.
I kind of have a feeling we're going to have the same upset pick of the night. I will also go with the Islanders. The Blue Jackets are without Bobrovsky, and the Islanders, checking out the Metro Division standings, both in the same division. Columbus, of course, last in the league, making them last in the division. Carolina ahead of them by 2 points. And the Islanders, they are currently third in the Metropolitan with 37 points, 2 behind the struggling Rangers. And so, with the Islanders' more or less firepower on offense, taking on a Bobrovsky-less Columbus, I don't see any ways the Islanders can muck this game up. I will go with the Islanders for this one. two games starting at 7 o'clock. From the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. Both of these are Central Division matchups. And from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, the Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche.
Go ahead, take this one first.
All right. This one is intriguing to me. This one, I think, could go either way, actually. Well, oh, God, no. You know what? Take that back. Because the goalie matchup, Semyon Varlamov is getting the start for Colorado, and it is Pecorine for Nashville. Yep, I'm going with Nashville.
Yep, don't need to ask me twice. I'm taking Nashville.
Yes, take back everything I was about to say. Varlamov has not had the best of seasons so far. All right, and once again from the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis, Missouri, the St. Louis Blues and the Dallas Stars. I think we all know who I'm picking first, so I will defer this one to Isaac.
Okay, well, I'm going to use my upset pick of the week and choose the St. Louis Blues.
Interesting that this is your upset pick. Yes.
I mean, they have like a 10-point difference.
Yes.
And I wasn't about to use it on Calgary. So,
yes.
Not so much of an upset pick. This is like upset in quotes, really.
I'm curious to hear additional reasoning.
What do you mean?
I mean, you know, sure, Dallas is on the road the night after another game, but they didn't look tired in that game. They dominated in not very many tiring moments. I mean, maybe it's tiresome to dominate, but I don't know.
I'm just using your rule of thumb and going with the gut instinct.
Oh, there you go. Though, I mean, you know, I'm pretty cynical right now, as most of you who were listening to the Week in Review might have guessed. I have to go with Dallas in here once again. I mean, I literally do not think anybody realizes just how bad Dallas has to be to not take advantage of this struggling defense when they have the league's leading goal scorer in Tyler Seguin. And so, yes, give me Dallas for that one. 9 o'clock Central Time start from the oh God, what's their arena name? Oh, the Scotiabank Saddledome in Calgary, Alberta. It is the Calgary Flames and the New York Rangers.
I'm choosing the Rangers, without a doubt here.
I, however, turns out we are not picking the same upset pick of the night I kind of thought we would. I'm using it here. I'm thinking the Flames at home can defeat the collapsing New York Rangers here.
Well, it'll be interesting. I think the Rangers coming off of last night, not wanting to lose again to a team near the bottom of the standings. I don't think they'd be cool with that.
All right. And lastly, from the SAP Center at San Jose, in San Jose, California, the San Jose Sharks and the Minnesota Wild.
I'm gonna choose the Wild. I've liked the Wild. You know, they're a little interesting team to watch. I enjoy them, so I think I'm gonna go with the Wild in this one.
It is Darcy Kemper getting the start for Minnesota. I am just now learning that Devin Dubnyk is injured. And it is Martin Jones for the Sharks. I will go San Jose for this one. Martin Jones has... I'm sold on Martin Jones. I think he is a solid goaltender for the Sharks.
Yeah, we did not do Carolina, Arizona.
Oh, yes. And that is a 8 o'clock Central Time start. I'm going with Carolina on this one. I like the way they've played so far on the road. In Arizona, they do have the young, explosive firepower with Max Domi and Anthony Duclair, but Arizona, they've been fairly down this season. And the goaltending matchup is Cam Ward and Anders Lindback for um, this game. So I will go with Carolina for this one.
Yeah, I got the Coyotes for this one.
Interesting. You think the run of strong games for the Canes comes to an end, or would this be another strong game with the Coyotes slightly pulling through? All right. And that would be our final pick 'em. Our picks are locked in. Our upset picks are locked in. Upset picks, again, Isaac picks the Blues. I pick the Calgary Flames. And we will now be heading into our closing part of the podcast. It is 4:38 Central Time, so we still have about an hour and a half before action begins. This has been the B&I Show. I'm Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My handle there is @ChatMyKirk. You can find me on Reddit. My username there is BTownBomb. And we were joined by our co-host Isaac. You can find him on Twitter. His handle there is @ShutUpIsaac_. And you can find him on Reddit. His username there is ShutUpIsaac. For our HockeyCast, you can find us on Twitter. Our handle there is @OurHockeyCast. You can find us on Reddit. Our page address there is Our HockeyCast. You can log on to OurHockeyCast.com for previous shows of the B&I Show and archives of previous shows. You can do that same thing on our YouTube page. Our address there is Our HockeyCast. For Isaac, I am Blake. This has been the B&I Show, and we are signing off.